Okay, we will call the regular meeting for Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 to order. Oh my gosh. Just prepared, sorry about this. As we gather, we are reminded that the town of Bonnyville is situated on Treaty 6 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and is the traditional homeland and home to First Nation and Métis people today. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nation, Métis, and all First People of Canada whose presence continues to enrich our community. Before us, we have an agenda. Are there any items, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Nothing from administration.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve them, please, as presented. Councillor Blanchette.
Thank you. I'll move approval of the agenda as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Next, we have the regular meeting minutes from February 11th, 2025. Were there any additions or deletions to these minutes? Seeing none, motion, please.
I'll make the motion to accept the meeting minutes from February 11th.
All in favor? Carried. All right, this evening we have a delegation from the Eastern Alberta Regional Victim Services Society. Please join us. Good evening. Yeah, we've got another chair here. Thank you, Renee. We just ask that you have the microphone on. Oh, is it on? It's green. Got it.
Green means good, right?
Yes, green means good. Yep. Good evening. So I'll open the floor. You can do a presentation, and then we can just do a question and answer.
Perfect. Thank you for having us. I am Melody Littell. I am the Director of Operations for Eastern Alberta Victim Services. I have with me my Assistant Director for this area.
I am Cheyenne Hranick. I am one of our Assistant Directors of Operations, so I cover the Bonnyville area, which is considered in our north region. And then we've also brought one of our on-the-ground navigators.
I'm Terry Heyer. I'm a navigator right at the Bonnyville detachment.
This evening we are missing our other navigator. She couldn't be with us tonight, and that's Connie.
Yes, Shalene. So she is one of our navigators in-house as well in Bonnyville at the detachment.
We'd like to start, next slide, with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that land on which we operate in Eastern Alberta District is the traditional and ancestral territory of many Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and Métis people who have lived on and cared for this land for generations. We recognize the deep historical significance and cultural connections these nations have to the land. We are committed to fostering relationships built on respect, understanding, reconciliation, as we continue to serve all the communities in this region. We honor the resilience and strength of the Indigenous peoples and their ongoing contributions to the community. As part of our work with victim services, in partnership with the RCMP, we strive to support all individuals, recognizing the importance of equity, healing, and justice for all. Next slide, please. So this slide talks about our missions and goals, our mission and values, and the mission and values of Eastern Alberta Regional Victim Services are based in the belief that victims are best served during the aftermath of an event and during their journey through the criminal justice system with supports and information. And our navigators are very well trained in providing supports in both those areas. We believe that everyone should be treated with respect and dignity in a non-judgmental way, whether that is providing supports at the moment of crisis or through the justice system. By treating people with dignity, respect, and meeting them where they are at on their individual journey, we hope to help our clients feel heard and supported with the best information possible so our clients can make the best decisions for themselves. Next slide, please. As you can see, we cover a great deal of territory. We go as far up as Wood Buffalo Fort McMurray, detachment area, and down to Consort Carnation, over to the Saskatchewan border, and up around the city. There is a map on the back of every one of those brochures that shows the areas we cover. This, as Cheyenne said, she is the assistant director and she oversees the people in the North Zone. And Doris Pindrock covers the South Zone. Do you want to, okay, jump in? So Cheyenne covers 10 detachments and Doris covers 14. Next slide. We practice a no wrong door approach. This means our navigators will work with anyone who picks up the phone or comes through the door to make sure we can get them to an agency that can provide the correct support. This may be we give out the agency's information to them, or if the client wishes, we'll facilitate that handoff. We will phone and make those connections on their behalf to the correct agencies. The RVSS falls into two support categories, which are listed: the general support services and criminal justice system navigation services. General supports cover supporting clients that we have received a referral about, or the ones that come forward to us with questions that fall into the no wrong door approach. The criminal navigation system includes giving clients court updates, doing court preparation with them, so facilitating Crown meetings, talking to them about what time to meet and where to meet at the courthouse the day of, what to bring with them, attending court with them to provide emotional support. Part of this support also encompasses providing the government-established programs of the Victim Impact Statement and the Restitution Recovery, and ensuring they know their rights under the Canadian Victim Bill of Rights. So this slide covers off what is eligible for services through the RVSS. Units still provide supports to victims of crimes against people where charges could be laid. So that could be in the for example column with intimate partner violence, family violence, assaults, aggravated assaults, sexual assaults, etc. We also provide supports to victims of files that are under investigation, like motor vehicle accidents or fires, while they are being investigated. If charges are laid, we will continue to provide the supports through the criminal justice system. If no charges are laid, we will hand those clients off to agencies like counselors, Red Cross, the people that can best support them. We also continue to provide supports in cases of sudden death notifications. So these are some of the things we no longer do. We no longer provide supports in many civil matters like divorce and parenting orders. We can advise a client where to access the forms or to consult a lawyer, but we no longer help or direct people to fill in forms. We no longer provide supports for natural disasters like fires. And it's important to remember that we aren't counselors and we aren't lawyers. We're lay people. So that's why we have, the RVSSs have been backed off of doing some of those things, where old units used to do those things. Next slide, please. These are some of the out-of-scope services. So currently there's no trauma dog program available with victim services. And I know Bonnyville had one. We are more than happy to work with outside agencies who do this, but this is something we don't provide in this current moment. We no longer transport. This was for the safety of everyone concerned. There have been a lot of close calls with staff across when they did their staff across the whole province when they did their investigation into transporting. We will work with Alberta Works to try and get hotel rooms or cabs, or the hotel room for the night and the cab in the morning, to try and fill those gaps. And we no longer do things like community debriefings. This is something we aren't trained to do, but we will connect your agencies or the community partner with an agency that can do those things. And we no longer do educational programming. Some units used to go in and provide education on what it looks like to be in an unhealthy relationship at the school, for example. We don't do that anymore. We do, Eastern Alberta Regional Victim Services does provide after hours on call. The RCMP detachments have the call out number. It is one number for all of the district that you have listed on that map. This RCMP will call that number, and that, the person who picks up the phone is trained to dispatch that, however it works according to our Tier 1 and Tier 2. This will vary though, based on the roster for your area. We will always have someone to answer the call out for the phone, and possibly do supports over the phone if you do not have advocates or support in the area. We continue to provide services for like sudden deaths and next of kin, serious deaths including, or serious suspicious deaths including homicides or driving fatalities, a home invasion if the victim's been moved to a safe location, a domestic violence where there's a high level of risk to the victim, as long as they're in a safe location or we can provide support over the phone, or a sexual assault where the victim's at the hospital. We no longer provide after-hour call-outs for child abuse or child sexual assault, because that goes to a specialized investigation team. Robberies, organized crime, missing persons, or expected deaths. So if someone was at hospice at home and passed away, we no longer go out to that. In our system, we have a two-tiered system. Tier 1 will answer calls, determine if the call meets the eligibility, and work with the officer to dispatch Tier 2 if it's available. So the Tier 2 is your advocate or any of the staff that's volunteered to be on call for your area. If unavailable, they will help them the best they can over the phone. So they will connect with Alberta Works, do that background work, try and get to shelter, try and organize that stuff. Tier 2 are the people who have volunteered to go on call in different areas. So that could be staff, because we have a lot of staff that are putting time in on the volunteer roster, and advocates. We do have some advocates in your area, so they go on the roster, and Tier 1 would determine the eligibility of the call, and if you have advocates, call out those advocates to go to the call. And that's us. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Wow, yes. That's a really big portfolio that you manage. But I'll open it up to council first, if there's any questions or comments. Councillor Blanchett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question. Can you maybe explain for the benefit of the folks maybe watching at home, how you went from being local victim services to now being a regional model?
Okay. So a few years ago, a couple of years ago, the government determined that they needed to change the way services were delivered or the way the model was set up. And they put in motion changing us from individual units to a regional model where we are overseen by one CPS, like we're the central office staff. So we take on the finances, making the policy decisions, doing all of the things. Like, we don't fundraise currently, but in the old models we used to have to fundraise. So we'd go to casinos, we'd be out fundraising for our jobs. That has all been removed through the way the government set up the new programs. And so the navigators like Terry can just go in and support clients. That's all she has to worry about doing. So this all came out of a government, I wouldn't say survey, but the government did a project where they looked at how service was being delivered. And that's where it came from.
And I think to keep consistency, because every
Very much.
individual place was doing their own thing.
Yes.
So there wasn't consistency. Now there will be. Being regional, everybody will be following the same rules, giving the same supports, doing it the same way. So
That's one of the beauties of it, is where maybe we transported and you didn't. Or where I know you had the dog program, we didn't. So it's to try and strive to get consistency across the whole zone. So it doesn't matter if our victim moves from here to Lethbridge, for example, or Redcliffe, you should get the same service here as you would in Redcliffe. Maybe with different agencies being the support, providing the support, but you should receive the same the victims assistance program, all of those things
All
should
the
be
same services, basically.
And it's also important to note that that included some areas didn't even have the support. So there were some detachments that didn't have VSU, some detachments that were running with very low staff. Bonnyville actually went up in staff members, so there used to be 2 full-time workers, there's now 3. So we have Terry Lee and Connie in office, and we have a 3rd on-the-ground worker that's going through their RCMP security clearance right now. So there will be 3 full-time workers in the Bonnyville office, which is an entire extra FTE versus what it was prior. So there is that more on-the-ground support as well, and they don't have to worry about the background of collecting stats and doing quarterly statistics and the fundraising and all of that. That's all handled by our CPSS office. So they get to worry about the clients and what they need to do on the ground. I hope that answers your question.
Did we get it all in?
Question I was gonna ask about the staff.
Yes.
And then, so then on top of the 3 FTE, then you also have the volunteers, the advocates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we have how many operational advocates for Bonnyville?
3.
3. And we're always looking. So
Always
the
looking
applications
for
are
more,
always
so
out there.
we've left applications for
Yes.
I will
advocates
look back
because
here.
we're always looking for more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then, so how is the change and the transition to this new model been in the, like a lot of the services that you provide? Is the workload still the same? I would think. Is it leaving a gap? I think is more so what I'd like to know, because a lot of the services you don't do. So I'm just curious about that. side of
So
things.
services that we don't do, like transportation, was never mandated by the government for us to do. Each individual unit's boards decided what they would and wouldn't do. And it was looked at from a safety perspective. I know for our unit years ago, it was looked at from a safety perspective, and we've been in some pretty dicey situations. So the government is working on that Alberta supports should have been supporting that. So we are working with Alberta. I understand. We are working hard with Alberta Supports to bring the bridge to that gap. Client-wise, the referral-wise, there was some misinformation and some mixed messages out there as we were moving over, like as it was moving across. I hear and have heard that victim services doesn't exist in Bonnyville anymore. We have ever since. The other unit closed, yes. We continue to support. So, and then having the members learn the new method of how to do a referral, that took a little bit of a hit in the very, very beginning, but they've come around really well. So I think crime might be a little bit on the downslide, we're hoping. But they are consistently coming up. We've only been operational, we are now month 5, end of month 5, going into month 6. So it's gonna be, I would say, a year before we get a really good baseline of what we have going on. But in the last quarter, we had 52 referrals, and we're supporting 113 through court. So,
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Johnson.
Just a quick comment, you kind of covered off my question on the gaps that it was gonna leave. Just that you guys do a lot of important work, and it's good to see that our local unit has the familiar faces that were there, Connie, Terry, and somebody new coming on, so that's great to see, because it is an important service that you guys provide, so I really appreciate you coming in and explaining the changes to us.
we really
Thank you.
appreciate having the platform to do so.
Okay, just one last question then. If somebody is interested to volunteer, what are the steps? First of all, fill out this application, submit it. Is there any training that they need to take, or how does that work? Yeah.
Lord help them.
I know.
I'm just gonna say, from a newbie's perspective, it's a lot initially, but after you start the process and get into it, it's so valuable. And what you learn, like initially, it's overwhelming because it's so much, but it's such an important job. You have to be trained. You have to go through that. And in the end, I think the benefit is the great work you do, right? So,
And we keep up with consistency. So February's advocate meeting, we brought in a speaker who talked about human trafficking. Tomorrow night, they have what's called a community of practice, where they will just get together and build relationships with each other. So all the advocates come together, all virtually right now. But we have skills labs that they're gonna have to do. So if you're supporting sexual assault, what does it look like? If you're going to an NOK, what does it look like? We consistently keep up with the trainings, and we've got some really good stuff coming up.
Yeah, so once we receive that application, they would have to complete a training by the government of Alberta. It's called AVS 101. It talks about the redesign and supports that they are going to have to provide, some resources, legislation that we are all mandated by, and then they would dive into that more on the ground physical training of how do you handle a sex assault, how do you handle an NOK, what is your responsibility at a homicide, what are all of those things for that actual technical skill of completing it, so.
And we're always canvassing them, what do you want to see? Like, what kind of training do you want? And they've been really forthcoming, so it's been really good. We're excited they can find us on their webpage. We are in the process of adding a QR code, because apparently that's how all people do it now.
I just have one final question for you. You spoke about the services that are consistent across the region in each community. Can you speak to maybe, and maybe you don't have the knowledge, but the consistency across the province?
But so our region mirrors with, all of our people are all trained to the same, would you say all of us are trained to the same standards? We all have to do the AVS 101 and everything that the government has laid out that we have to take. So all navigators have to take a certain amount of the same training. I know we're starting to partner with other zones and doing training. So like the NOK training and the court training. We're working diligently with West right now, trying to come up with that. And we're currently working to bring South and Central to make the training so it goes across the board.
And the service delivery is consistent. So the out of scope and in scope in the PowerPoint, those two things, that is across the entire province. Everybody carries the same in scope and out of scope. That was put in place by RCMP and GOA as to what we support.
Yep.
So we all get the same referrals and we all have to follow the same eligibility from all the way up north to all the way down south.
Well, I'll have to call Alberta Works.
The only place that may differ is in the police-based victim services. So Wood Buffalo still has their own victim services. Lloyd still has their own. Lacombe Police Service has their own. Camrose. Grand Prairie is covered by the regional design.
okay.
Yes.
Oh.
And they are partnering as well with the Grand Prairie Police to hopefully support that way as well. And then there's some down south that have their own as well that are still city
Lethbridge,
polices.
Medicine Hat.
Yeah.
The bigger ones, yeah.
Yeah.
There is 9, I think it's 9 9 municipal, and that can do some of their own things, but as I understand, if they are getting government funding, they have to oblige by the same referrals, same processes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that has been a brilliant thing to provide that consistency. We all do the same thing.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming this evening, and thank you so much for your dedication and your hard work in, all our communities and the services that you all do. It's an important piece, for victims and clients, and so thank you very much. And we'll make sure to keep the volunteer applications handy and talk lots about victim services. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your guys' time.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys, what did I do with my, what do we have next? I'm sorry. Okay, next, the bylaw, water and sewer bylaw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the January 28th Regular meeting of council. The draft water and sewer bylaw received first reading. The water and sewer bylaw is being updated to improve service delivery and communication with residents. The water and sewer bylaw number 1393-12 was last updated in 2012 and is due for updating to reflect current practices, new vocabulary, to reference current legislation, and to increase fine amounts for bylaw contraventions. Recommended changes from a legal review have been included in this draft of the bylaw. These changes are focused to Section 14, Enforcement and Penalties, and Schedule D, Release of Legal Liability on Water Bypasses. Documents attached for council's reference include draft bylaw number 1587-25, a memorandum of updates, and the current consolidated utility bylaw number 1393-12. A few options for council include to provide second and third reading to bylaw number 1587-25, to amend bylaw 1587-25 and provide second reading, or to defeat bylaw number 1587-25. The desired outcome is to complete second and third reading of bylaw number 1587-25, the water and sewer bylaw. Revenue and expense implications will be included in the final budget presented in April, should this bylaw be passed before then. And the recommendation is that council provide second and third reading to bylaw number 1587-25, the water and sewer bylaw.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to council. Were there any questions or comments on the bylaw? All right, we're looking for second and third reading, please. Councillor Johnson.
I will move ahead with the second reading of bylaw number 1587-25, water and sewer bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. We're looking for third reading, please. Councillor Langridge.
I will go ahead and move third reading, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, that bylaw's been passed. Okay, next we've got the bylaw for 47th Avenue Backlane Lit.
Thank you. So attached is bylaw number 1592-25, authorizing the Town of Bonnyville Council to borrow funds, which will be borrowed from ourselves, and impose a local improvement tax. These properties are adjacent to the back lane south of 47th Avenue, between 46th and 47th Street. The local improvement is to be imposed for the purpose of repaving the back lane. This bylaw was created with the provision that the construction costs would be done on a local improvement tax basis and collected 20% back from the owners, with 80% paid by the town, in accordance with the policy. We have recently sent letters to the adjacent property owners outlining the local improvement plan to gauge their support, and can confirm that in accordance with Section 392 of the MGA, less than 2/3 of them, representing less than 50% of the assessed value, are opposed. So council may proceed with the project in accordance to the plan. Under the proposed bylaw, just under $114,000 is proposed to be borrowed, and $22,770 is to be charged back against the property owners annually at a unit rate of $154.36 per meter for a period of 10 years at 4.73% interest. Documents attached for council's reference include proposed bylaw number 1592-25 and alley paving policy 04-PW-04. After the 30-day window, the bylaw will be brought back for second and third reading, after which the project would proceed. Options for council include to defeat the bylaw number 1592-25 or provide first reading to bylaw number 1592-25. Financial, so council has included $120,000 in the interim capital budget for a back lane local improvement tax. And the recommendation is that council provide first reading to bylaw number 1592-25 for the borrowing and charging of the local improvement tax for the 47th Avenue South back lane between 46th and 47th Street local improvement project.
Thank you so much. Open it up to council. Any questions or comments on this request? Councillor Langridge?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We spoke to So this is an interesting alleyway. It looks like there's only 4 properties on the alley. So, just trying to understand the 4 properties, and we say that it has to be over a certain amount of the assessed value to go. I mean, 2 of those properties are very large properties, so I'm thinking the assessed value are those 2 properties. Do we know, have all 4 of them been okay with it, or where are we at on that front for?
So we've received the letters back. Yeah, 2 of the 4 are, the 2 big ones, are in favor of it. One didn't respond, and another one responded with a no.
Okay, thank you.
So if we passed first reading, will they be re-notified? Will we try to reach back out?
Yes, we'll send letters out that the bylaw did get first reading, and now they have 30 days to respond to let us know if they're in favor or not again.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Looking for first reading. Or decisions. Councillor Blanchett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move a staff recommendation that council provide first reading to bylaw 1592-25.
All in favor? That's carried. Okay, next, bylaw, proposed partial lane closure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The town of Bonnyville has had a request to close a portion of the lane on the back of 4802 47th Ave. The intent was to close the section of the lane so that the Bonny Lodge residents could use this as a green space along with the empty lot at 4802 47th Ave. The previous bylaw 1526-22 was given first reading on February 22nd, 2022. Though not all information was given to Alberta Transportation for their approval, unfortunately, it was delayed and consequently the bylaw timed out after 24 months and therefore we could not use it. For this reason, we are presenting this new bylaw to council for first reading. Referral letters have been forwarded to adjacent landowners and utilities companies and agencies for the road closure request. We've had no objections received. The bylaw with copies of the referral letters and feedback from the public hearing will be required to be approved by the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors. A public hearing is required on the bylaw, and a date for the public hearing will be set for March 25th, 2025. This allows time for the public notice to be run for a minimum of 2 weeks in the paper and online. There's 3 options for council this evening. Option 1 is to provide first reading for bylaw 1588-25. Option 2 is to amend bylaw 1588-25 and provide first reading. Option 3 would be to defeat bylaw 1588-25. It's administration's recommendation that the proposed partial lane closure bylaw 1588-25 be given first reading by council. Administration will advertise and set the public hearing date for March 25th, 2025.
Thank you. Open it up to council for questions or comments. Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, I remember this the first time I came and I drove that back alley, and it's a back alley to nowhere, and it's, you know, would be better served letting the lodge use it. So I have no problem with giving first reading if nobody has any other comments.
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. It's not necessarily to the work. I'm just curious. It's interesting. Do we have to send anything that has to do with like a lane closure, road closure through Alberta Transportation, or what's that criteria?
If any road closures and lane closures, yeah. And we have to, and there was I think that was missing was the right-of-way agreement that didn't go with the package. And that's what delayed it. So this time we got the agency and I have received copies of their utility right-of-way that it can submit. So.
That's interesting. It's just interesting considering if we have policies and bylaws in place that fall in line with, you know, what a municipality can do, why do we always have to go to the municipality for these? Or not the municipality, but the province, sorry. Yeah. Anyways, that was just my question. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Johnson.
All right, I will move the first reading of bylaw 158825, portion lane closure, and public hearing be set for March 25th, 2025.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Next, reserve transfers for the 2024 year end.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In accordance with policy number 07FN049, a council motion is required to transfer funds to and from reserve accounts that are not budgeted. All of the transfers in the attached listing are to balance the 2024 year for both operating and capital and will be reflected in the year-end financial statements presented by the auditors. The 2024 operating budget ended the year with a surplus of $121,758. This surplus is due to an increase in revenues as well as cost savings on expenses. Significant areas where changes were realized include interest revenue, the contract for water, the sewer lagoon disposal revenue, Class 3 and transfer station revenue, and the purchase of fuel and oil. There were also areas where costs exceeded the budget amount, which was covered by cost savings in other areas. Administration is recommending that council authorize the attached list transfers to and from reserves as noted for operations and capital projects for 2024.
Any questions from council? Councilor Langridge?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through administration, do we have a number for the capital? Was it, there's no surplus on our capital budget?
No, capital is the projects that were done were covered by reserve transfers or grant funding, so that was, there'll be carryover projects for 2020,
Okay.
from 2024 into 2025, and they'll be included in the final budget.
So if all capital items came in at cost, so none came in under budget, or, because would that not create a surplus if they came in under budget?
As it's coming from reserves, we just keep the money in reserve and there's no surplus because we'll only bring in the revenue that's needed. So it'll stay in the general capital reserve.
All righty, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'm just looking for a motion then, please. Councilor Langridge?
I gotta go back there. I will move that council authorize the attached listed transfers to and from reserves as noted for operations and capital projects for 2024.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. All right, next, financial reports, January 2025.
So attached is the monthly financial report up to January 2025, and we ask that council accept this report as presented.
Thank you. Any questions for administration? No? All right, we're looking for a motion then to accept the financial reports as presented. Councilor Johnson?
I will make the motion that we accept January 2025 financial reports as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, Jesse Lake tree lighting.
Thank you. The 2025 interim capital budget includes $40,000 for tree lighting along Jesse Lake. Administration recently reached out to our vendor regarding pricing and was told that the vendor will provide a 10% discount on current pricing if the town places the order for the lights by February 28th. We are asking that council approve ordering the lights for the tree lighting project for a total cost of $40,000.
Sorry, just to clarify, so this is money we already had budgeted, we're just looking at spending it a little sooner to get the discount.
It's in the interim capital budget, and administration cannot purchase anything without your approval prior to final budget.
All right, looking for a motion? Councilor Blanchett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to point out, this is like the one thing we did this term that everyone seems to love, so I'm happy to move that council approve ordering the lights for the tree lighting project for a total cost of $40,000.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Okay, appointment of a board member to the Bonnyville District Leisure Facility Corporation.
Thank you. Administration received an email from the C2 Center advising that during the January 27th board meeting, a motion was made to remove all members at large and proceed with a board composition consisting of elected officials only, appointed from the MD and the town. Currently, both Mayor Brasso and Councillor Johnson are the elected representatives for the town. Due to the above motion, the C2 is requesting that the town appoint an additional member to the board. Administration is asking that council appoint a third member to the Bonnyville and District Leisure Facility Corporation Board.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
We nominate somebody? Or you're looking for volunteers?
Oh, sorry. Yes, we're appointing somebody. Are you gonna nominate it or somebody want
I
to
would,
volunteer?
I would nominate Councillor Langridge.
Do you accept?
I will accept, Madam Mayor, I just want to point out, obvious, I do work for an organization that uses that building, but I would obviously remove myself from any conflicts that arise from that on the part of the board, but would be happy to accept the nomination.
And just for clarification, that's very minimal that
Yeah,
that comes up, so I don't see it being a problem at all.
I agree. Yeah. Put a motion?
Yeah, I'll put the motion that we nominate or name Councillor Langridge to the C2 board.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, Bonnyville Child and Adolescent Mental Health Collaborative funding request.
Thank you. During the February 11th council meeting, the Bonnyville Child and Adolescent Mental Health Collaborative provided an update to council on the recent elimination of provincial funding for the Mental Health Collaborative Program effective March 31st, 2025. The annual funding contribution from the province was $67,700, which was used to fund the mental health navigator position. The collaborative is requesting both the town and MD consider additional funding for this program at a cost of $25,000 each. 2025 interim operating budget includes a contribution of $50,000 to this program. Including the above request will increase the town contribution to $75,000. The program provides mental health support for youth aged 6 to 17 that are dealing with ADHD, anxiety, and depression. Currently, the program serves over 70 youth and their families with new referrals from schools, local physicians, and providers who see unattached patients. The reasoning behind the elimination of funding from Recovery Alberta is due to the determination that the program no longer aligns with the mandate, as this program focuses on prevention and early intervention rather than addiction and recovery services. The collaborative has applied for a federal grant, but the status of the application is currently unknown. Administration is recommending that council approve the additional funding request in the amount of $25,000 for the Bonnyville Child and Adolescent Mental Health Collaborative Program, with funding to be allocated from contingency.
Okay, thank you. Opening it up to comments, questions. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I just want to say I'm very disappointed for the short-sightedness of AHS and the provincial government for not coming through with this funding. Prevention that is provided in this program decreases visits to the emergency department and walk-in clinics by youth. It helps in the educational setting with, with the tools that they need, that they don't have to rely on teachers' aides as much, disruptions in classrooms. And it gives them the tools for success as they get older and they don't need the system as much. And they seem to lose sight of this, over $67,000. And this truly is a collaborative. It's been put together for 10 years between the town of Bonnyville, the MD of Bonnyville, and AHS. And I am very disappointed because this is a very unique program that can be implemented across the province and help many kids. And, for them trying to, quantify their spending by amount of visits or this or that, by not looking at the big picture is really disappointing. And it ticks me off that they continue to download. And the biggest thing with this program is the quality of life for our youth, the opportunity for success and preventing death by suicides. And for me, one life saved is more than enough for the money that we spend on it. So for myself, I am in favor to go ahead with this. And thanks to Councillor Blanchette, she did provide us with the MD's decision today about, they did approve their funding request from them. And they also directed their administration to send a letter to MLA Scott Sear and the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions over this. And I would like us to do the same and team up together to support this and tell them how we really are disappointed with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without repeating everything that Councillor Johnson just said, I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm also in favor of funding this. And I think it's interesting that, of course, the priorities of the collaborative don't fall under Recovery Alberta, because the hope is always that folks don't make it to Recovery Alberta, the needs of requiring the services of Recovery Alberta by accessing these services. So yeah, I agree. It's just another example of the province not recognizing impactful investment in prevention. So I think that we should support this initiative, put our money where our mouths are when we talk about being more proactive than reactive. I would be happy to make the motion when the time comes.
Any other questions?
Just one thing. Can we request as part of the motion, direct administration to send a letter to, same as the MD, to put some pressure on the government over this? I think that's important.
And if I can make one further suggestion, that maybe we send it to the Minister of Community Services to Prevention.
Yep.
Minister Nixon's
Yes.
portfolio as well, if you can look up whatever that ministry, it's a long one. With that, I move that council approve the additional funding request in the amount of $25,000 for Bonnyville Child and Adolescent Mental Health Collaborative Program, with funding to be allocated from contingency, and then send the letter to the appropriate ministries as well.
All right, thank you. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, next, Police Act amendments and Town of Bonnyville Policing Committee.
Thank you. The Police Amendment Act 2022 requires RCMP policed communities with a population between 5,000 and 15,000 be represented by regional police committees, but do have the option to apply to opt out from this committee and form their own municipal policing committee. Administration recently met with Public Safety and Emergency Services regarding the requirements. It was suggested during that meeting that the town contact neighboring municipalities in our region to inquire if they would be opting in or if they would be requesting approval from the minister to opt out of this committee. The consensus of most of the municipalities contacted was that they would be opting out of the regional committee, as they have or will be establishing their own municipal policing committee. As the town currently has a policing committee, and due to many other municipalities in our region choosing to opt out of the regional policing committee, administration is recommending that council request approval from the minister to opt out of the regional policing committee. It should also be noted that due to the recent Police Act amendments, updates to the current municipal police committee bylaw will be brought forward to a future council meeting. Our recommendation is that council direct administration to request ministerial approval to opt out of the regional policing committee, as the town has its own municipal policing committee.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? No? All right. We're looking for a motion. Yeah, looking for a motion. Okay.
Thank you. Just through to administration. What are your thoughts? This just came to me here, but in the fact that if we opt out, what are the pros and cons to being a part of this committee? Like, what would we be missing out on?
When we talked to Public Safety and Emergency Services, they did say right now there are very few municipalities opting in. So depending on how many opt in, there may or may not be a regional committee. Once that regional committee is established, if it is, the bylaw would have to be jointly approved, made, and signed by all the member municipalities, as well as the Police Amendment Act says you have to have a plan for your community, which is the same thing if you would have your policing committee. So it's really unknown right now, depending on who opts in.
And so the reason I ask is I'm curious, like, I sit on the police committee currently here for the town. And will there be, communication going back and forth from the regional committee to our committee? Is there any conversation happening between them? Is it gonna, I know I might be asking questions that we don't know the answer because it's all brand new, but I just want to be sure that, we don't miss the boat on it. If it is going to be important, that we would have a voice at a table of, with the ever-changing times we see with policing right now, we don't know which way it's going from one year to the next, but just a thought to put out there.
I can make a comment. I mean, a lot of this is unknown because there is no regional committee established yet. It's not due till March 1st. But we did just become a member of the Alberta Advisory Policing Committee. So they also provide us updates now through emails of anything that's going on with the advisory board. So that's one step that from all of the municipal committees as well as the regional ones, we will get information provided through that forum as well.
Is there, do we, and you probably don't know the answer to this one, I'm guessing, because it is so new, but if we opt out, is there another opportunity to opt back in if we so choose?
They weren't sure. As of right now, they didn't know if there was going to be a regional committee based on the number of municipalities that may opt in or out. The majority that they talked to are opting out. They'll know more after March 1st. We have to let them know by the end of this week whether we're going to be sending a letter to the minister or if we're going to opt in.
And where this all came from is, Madam Mayor, I know you attended a meeting with said ministers a couple months ago, with some of our local area representatives. And so, we had a lot of issues that we wanted to bring up. Some may say some of that fell on deaf ears, but again, I just don't know if this is an opportunity, to potentially have a voice, maybe, and again, I have no idea what the capacity of this committee is gonna be, so that's why it's hard to make a decision that, I don't want us to go back and say, oh, we should have been able to, we would have been able to have a voice, because we know, crime in our community is something that we take seriously, we want to be able to help address. Will this committee help that? I have no idea, so, anyway, just a thought process before we jump down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, like, it surprises me that, because I was thinking exactly the same thing, that, we're doing this big push, we should be working as a region and discussing a region, policing and advocating and lobbying the ministers. So to me, I was seeing it as this is an opportunity for us to come to the table, well, being told we have to, but also looking at it as an opportunity. So it was interesting to me that other municipalities have already decided they're not going to. So, what were their thought processes and why, I don't know, maybe you do know?
Well, the only thing I can add to that is during the meeting, I did ask if we were part of the regional committee, could we also have our own policing committee? And they said, well, technically no, as the way the legislation is written. And then she asked, why would you want to? I said, well, because there's local issues as well that we want to bring to the region. So that would be a catch-22 as to if we could still have our own policing committee and be part of the regional one as well. I believe the intent behind it is because a lot of municipalities don't have a policing committee at all. So that there was the push to have some sort of a committee established, whether it be a regional one or a municipal one.
And what, where would we land? Like, what is our region? Because I know we talked our municipal. Yeah.
It's the northeast zone, and it goes from about Bonnyville all the way up to the north, yeah.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, if you take a look at the map on the back of the victim services pamphlet that was handed out, that's the RCMP Eastern Provincial Detachment Area.
So, again, with that thought process, right? Like if we decided to continue to go with it, but then it's just us and Wood Buffalo. Is that regional? Yeah, it's It's a tough one, because I hear what you're saying, and I agree.
And I believe the meeting we sat in on, Renee and Dan and Councillor Kushner and myself, I think they spoke to 28, was it?
27.
27 municipalities that would be involved in this regional. But it'd be interesting if 27 turn into 4, and is it really a regional voice? Are the committees, I do think there's more at play here of why the government does want to encourage police committees, because like administration spoke to, there isn't a lot of municipalities that have their own policing committees, so they've been asking for that voice. We've had one for as long as I can remember, so if it's just the same voice, but why would, and then I go to the other side, is why would we take away our localized voice to be on a regional one? So it's, again, without knowing the extent of what this committee can do, it's very, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
conversation.
I know, I was very much in support of the regional committee, but then considering our neighboring municipalities have already declined, to me, that is our region, and, yeah. Considering you sit on the policing committee, if you were in favor of it, we'll follow your lead.
Well, I mean, we did speak about this a couple weeks ago, and Councillor Kushner and I both said, if it isn't gonna have any impact, then we would put at jeopardy our localized, one that we wouldn't be in favor, so I can only go with kind of what my counterpart and I discussed. This just all stuff, of course, there was an epiphany tonight, I'm thinking, well, what about this? But, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll make the motion to, that council direct administration to request ministerial approval to opt out of regional policing committee, as the town has its own policing committee.
That was good conversation. Thank you for the motion. All in favor? Carried. Okay, zero-turn lawnmower purchase.
Thank you. Council has included $18,000 for the purchase of a zero-turn mower in the 2025 interim capital budget. Purchases in the interim capital budget must be approved by council. Equipment suppliers have indicated that now would be a good time to purchase this equipment, as there is uncertainty regarding potential tariffs. While 2 of the 3 prices are within budget, Dynamo small engine is the lowest. A summary of the quotes has been included for council's reference. The recommendation is that council award the purchase of the zero-turn mower to Dynamo small engine for $16,500.
Any questions? That's all. Councillor Johnson?
Through to administration, do you typically replace one mower every year?
Yeah, we're getting to that point now. It took a few years to build up our fleet because they weren't making the 7 years. So, but we're almost up to that point. So if it's not this year, it'll be next year where it's 1 in and 1 out. But
Okay. No, I'm fine with that, and I'm ready to make the motion on it. If there's any other conversation to be had. All right, I'll make the motion of the staff recommendation that we buy the zero-turn lawnmower from Dynamo Small Engine for $16,500.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Next, the fleet pickup truck purchase.
thank you. Council has included $57,000 in the interim capital budget for the purchase of a fleet pickup truck. Purchases in the interim capital budget must be approved by council. Administration is requesting the purchase be made before the approval of the final budget in April due to potential trade impacts. Included is a summary of the tender results for council's review. Some options include decline to replace the existing truck, award to the lowest tendered submission, or award to the next lowest tendered submission. Administration has had extensive discussions regarding the merits of the last option, as there is a possibility that retaliatory tariffs on imported trucks are being considered, which could have increased cost implications for purchasing from the low bidder. In addition, the 2025 GMC price is closer to equivalent when you factor in the net present value of depreciation, with the vehicle being available in only 1 week instead of 20 weeks. That said, a recommendation is based on the current practice of awarding to the low bidder, even though the 2 lowest tender submissions are within budget. The recommendation is that council award the purchase of the pickup truck to Tertiary Motors for $51,029.49.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? I have one question through to administration. So why would the recommendation not go with the grand total? We have,
Grand total includes the GST.
yeah. So we can't include that in the,
What goes through the budget is just the subtotal without the GST.
okay. Okay, council, looking for a decision. Councillor Langridge?
Madam Mayor, I'll go ahead and give you a motion that council award the purchase of the pickup truck to Tertiary Motors for $51,2949.
All in favor? Carried. Next, CPO, SUV purchase.
Thank you. Council has included $80,000 in the interim capital budget for the purchase of another CPO SUV to accommodate for the new CPO position. Purchases in the interim capital budget must be approved by council. 2 separate tenders were completed on different sized vehicles that helped administration evaluate operational needs and value. A summary of the tender results is included for council's review. The preferred strategy is to purchase the Ford Explorer from Ducharme Motors and increase the budget to accommodate the aftermarket scope, as it will meet operational needs and it complies with the purchasing policy. A few alternative options include purchase the Ford Explorer from Metro Ford and increase the budget for the aftermarket scope, or include it in the 2026 budget deliberations. The recommendation is that council award the CPO SUV tender to Ducharme Motors for $69,976 and increase the budget for this vehicle to $107,105 to fund the additional aftermarket costs, with funding to come from the equipment replacement reserve.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Langridge?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to understand this one a little bit, so through to administration. So we had 80,000 in our interim budget, but we need 107. Where did we go wrong on that one?
When we did the last CPO vehicle, we had a lot of the aftermarket materials, the lights, the sirens, the decals, and it wasn't factored in with this, when we added it to this budget for the new vehicle. Now we need all new of those lights and sirens and decals and everything else to outfit the new vehicle.
And so when I look at so obviously the prices are quite a bit different, but the suited up total, they're very similar. Why? So is the suited up total different by dealership?
It was difficult. Well, so once we got the price for the Tahoe aftermarket scope, it was difficult to compare apples to apples to the Ford Explorer aftermarket scope, where Ford, they could do a lot of that at the factory. So so we're getting, so the Ford, the Ford cost came up because a lot of that is done at the factory, and the quote, while it was custom to that, it still had some of the extra on the back end. So it was just a flat, it was just, the difference, 35,000 on top of that for the, which brought it closer to the Tahoe because of the difference in the aftermarket.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions?
No,
Okay,
I can go ahead and make the motion.
sure, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, the council award the CPO SUV tender to Ducharme Motors for $69,976 and increase the budget for this vehicle to 107, 105, to fund the additional aftermarket cost with funding to come from the equipment replacement reserve.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Next, committee reports, and we'll start with Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. February 12th, we had an events committee meeting. We got some stuff coming up here. March 15th, we're having our family fun day at Pontiac Park. We're partnering with the ACFA with that, and we're going to be having fireworks, free hot dogs, the Sugar Shack, which in French, I'll let you guys pronounce that because I will not get it right. And there's going to be some music, so it'll be a lot of fun. And a couple more things to look forward to. There's talk of an Easter egg hunt that's going to be coming up, townwide garage sale, and Canada Day, of course. So a few things to look forward to as spring's upon us. February 13th, I stopped by the FCSS Mental Health Night. And February 19th, we had a Historical Society meeting. That's it for me for right now.
Alrighty, so February 12th, the events committee meeting, and then also had a quick special library meeting that evening. On Friday, attended a recruitment meeting. And then all the way down to February 25th today for an economic development meeting, and that is it for moi.
Thanks. On February 12th, I had a meeting with Parallel. They have a new contact in our region. I forget what the predecessing organization was, but they just amalgamated. So they help bilingual people and French-speaking people find jobs. February 13th, attended Merging Trends workshop here in council. February 14th, had a meeting with Lakeland HR to kickstart our CAO recruitment. The ad just went out today. February 14th, ABMA members meeting. February 19th, I attended, and I don't know what this stands for, MAPS workshop. It was a part 2 of a workshop, which is reviewing the new proposed system and processes for PCN. So I attended with Chief Medical Officer Dean Hansen. February 20th, attended our local Bonnyville Chamber Business Support Network. February 21st, attended the Hub meeting where it was discussed some of the proposed future, the future of Hub, as they know for a fact. Their funding is only for the next 3 years, and then we've got to find either a different way of doing it, or where does it land, or is there any value to the members? So there was a lengthy conversation all about that. Then on February 22nd, I was invited by some members from Kihiwan to attend a round dance. It was their 3rd annual memorial. And I just want to give a shout out actually to the C2 as I mentioned this. They had a round dance the Friday night and the Saturday night. These round dances go till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And so the C2 and their staff pretty much ran for 24 hours a day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Just think of it, Sunday they had a volleyball, I don't know if it was a tournament at 10 a.m. So if we are, have 1,000 people leaving at 6 a.m., there was a quick turnaround. There's a few bumps on the way, but it was nice to see Kihiwan use that facility as it's, something that is regional. And so it was quite an event to go to, and I was really honored to be there. February 24th, I met with our auditors. They're going to be here all week, and they're quite busy. And then February 25th today, we had an ECDEV meeting. We spoke on the rural renewal stream, and we talked about how, the pros and cons, but our ECDEV officer is going to take it back. We're going to take another look at it and come back with a recommendation on how we can move that program forward. And that's it for me.
All right, February 12th, I participated in part 2 of an asset-based community development session with the Bonnyville Wellness Coalition. That was followed by an events committee meeting and a quick special library board meeting. February 13th, the Emerging Trends in Municipal Law seminar. February 14th, an AB Munis Safe and Healthy Communities Committee meeting. February 20th, FCSS AA Communications and Advocacy Committee meeting. February 21st, FCSS AA Financial Review presentation, followed by a Resolutions Committee meeting. And then yesterday, I had my regular monthly check-in meeting with Assistant Deputy Minister Jen Anderson. That's all for me.
Okay, under correspondence, we've got an email from Minister MacGyver regarding the joint use and planning agreements extension, and then a letter looking for library boards to provide submissions for the 2025 Ministers Award, and our appendix, community organization funding up to February 20th. Are there any questions? All right, we have nothing in camera, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Blanchett,
I'll move adjournment, Madam Mayor.
all in favor?